It's huge. So that would be probably the most surprising thing I would say to people is don't try to get back to who you were before.
Hey mama, welcome to Naturally Empowered Living, your safe space to guiding you on your unapologetic self-awakening journey to learning your energy of alignment and feeling good again. This is your weekly sanctuary to wake up from autopilot and transform the way you approach motherhood and life through the power of meditation, energetics, and root cause therapy. It's my mission to help you embody the foundations of self-love, trust, and inner connection to be unapologetic in the evolution of who you are. Here, we honor all parts of ourselves, the messy and the magic, the shadows and the light. If you are ready to get to the roots of cultivating real change, warm up that cold coffee, pop in your earbuds, and tighten that top knot, mama. Let's discover our power within together. Hello, beautiful mamas. Welcome back to another episode of the Naturally Empowered Living podcast. This is your host, Jenna Smith. And today we have such a special guest joining us, Stephanie DeVries. She is a psychotherapist registered with the College of Registered Psychotherapists of Ontario. And I don't even know how to pronounce Ontario.
You nailed it. You nailed it.
Okay, cool. Awesome. And she's passionate about supporting moms through one of the most delicate and often overlooked times of our lives, and that is the postpartum period. I'm so honored to be introducing her and that title because we have known each other for some time, and I've just always valued her insights and perspectives and just the lovely person that she is. Like, I'm so proud of you, Steph. So, okay. So one more little tidbit and I'll pass over the mic, but Stephanie believes that moms need someone who truly understands the depth, and like we need that so much, the depth of what we're going through, especially postpartum, even prenatal. And she brings her own experience to this work, with empathy and dedication. And I just thank you so much for being here. And I can't wait to learn from you and just hear where you're at right now. So I just want to pass over the mic to you to share your story, your past experiences with your personal pregnancies, postpartum experiences, and just what brought you to this path today.
Yeah. Well, hello. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for the beautiful introduction. And right back at you. I'm so proud of what you've been doing too. It's amazing to see. So yeah, my journey began, my daughter is 5.5 now. And Jenna and I have kids around the same age, which is really
how we met. Oh,
that's how we met. Yeah, with their first little babies. So, after my first was born, I wasn't sure what to expect at all because, and I think even 5 years ago, it wasn't talked about quite as much, or it wasn't talked about in the circles that I was in. I knew there was something called postpartum depression, but that's pretty much all I knew, right? And I had never struggled much with any other mental health issues in that regard. So when I had my first, I was shocked, really. I was like, well, I just don't feel like me. I'm not happy. I'm crying every night. And you don't know if it's normal or not, right? You have no idea. So, I kind of just pushed through. And I didn't feel like myself for a long time. And I think a lot of moms share that experience, especially with their first, because they don't know what's normal. And they're told that, you're not going to feel like yourself. And they're like, okay, I will just accept this then. This is me now. This is my new normal. And it sucks. And then I had my second, and that was literally during a lockdown, during COVID. Like masked up for the delivery and the labor and all that stuff. So that was even harder. It was worse that time. Postpartum, obviously, because there was nobody dropping food off.
I remember when you had William.
Yeah. So William was a sweet baby, but I just felt so alone.
Yeah.
So not myself. And I had thoughts of taking him and running away from my family. Which now, like looking back on that, absolutely blows my mind because I would never do something like that.
I would never crying stuff. Yeah. Just like the relatability piece, Oh.
And I think a lot of moms have similar thoughts, different scary thoughts, and they feel like, oh my gosh, nobody can know that I'm thinking this.
Yeah.
They'll take my baby away. They'll lock me up, right? And so I mean, pushed through that again. I did do a little bit of therapy, so that definitely helped. And then I was also on a journey to becoming a therapist at that same time. I was in school, and I did take some time off when the first two kids were born. And then I went back and finished my practicum right before my third baby was born. And I knew throughout that process of being pregnant and learning to be a therapist that it was important for me to figure out how I could support myself and learn all that I could about postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, all that kind of stuff, so that I could help myself and that so that I could help other women. So it was almost a little test for me. Like, if I can feel better this time, if I can do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all these steps, and it works, right? That's like pretty good evidence. It's only one person. It's not a peer reviewed study or anything, but and it worked. And I felt, even though my daughter was in the hospital for the first 3 weeks of her life, I felt like, I don't know, I felt amazing, honestly, postpartum. Which was mind-blowing for me. And I really prioritized a lot of things that we can talk about. I know you have more questions. So it was just a really cool experience. And now that's what I specialize in. So I'm specializing in helping other moms through that process and to prepare for postpartum. If they have any fear of their mental health not being top-notch after their baby is born, if they've had something before. Those are all really real fears, and actually prevent people from having subsequent children too. So what I want people to know is you don't have to go through that again. It doesn't have to be the same, right? There are things that you can do, and it can be a beautiful experience. So that's where I'm at today. Hopefully that wasn't too long.
No, not at all. And I want to I'm praising you too with just sharing that vulnerability because of the fear behind those intrusive thoughts. And people will think I'm crazy. People will think take my baby away and, lock me up, whatever, because we're already in that state of mind. And I don't even have background, knowledge in that. That's why I can't wait to dive in with you between, what depression versus anxiety versus psychosis, because I never went to therapy. I wasn't diagnosed with anything, but if I want to self-diagnose, I know that I still struggle with intrusive thoughts. And I know that I also, struggled with, we'll see, maybe baby blues versus, postpartum depression if I want to self-diagnose, just kind of putting my person into what you're going to share. But I just thank you for sharing that vulnerability, because that's kind of what also got me starting my blog. Because when I was postpartum with Jace, it was all about that fourth trimester blur. And how I had no idea what it was, because everything was preparing for baby. I'm a first-time mom. Everything, the nursery, making sure he is taken care of course.
Right.
But
you have the baby bathtub and you have the crib, you're fine. Right?
And then, the 6-week checkup. All right, good. Check. And here we go. And I'm not sure healthcare between Canada and the States. That's where we both are right now. But, let's dive in. Okay. So, where do I want to start? So from your personal experience with postpartum depression, what you just shared during, your pregnancies and postpartum, what do you feel like was the most surprising or misunderstood aspect within postpartum health? Or what do you work through now, wanting to help with awareness with mothers and their postpartum journeys?
Right. That's a big question. And I think there's a lot missing. But there are advocates and there are groups working to put those missing things into healthcare so that moms in the future can have those things. But I think from a personal standpoint, managing expectations is probably, I don't know if I want to say number one, but it's up there. It is up there. I think there's this push to try to get back to yourself postpartum, whatever that means for you. It doesn't have to necessarily be bouncing back physically and looking the same way, but being yourself again. And I think, as beautiful as it sounds, it's actually a really dangerous thought.
Yeah.
because you're not going to be yourself again. You're a new person. When your baby is born, you're born as a mother. And so it's not going to be that you feel the same way again, right? You can feel good, but feel different. And I think that should be the aim. I think that trying and pushing to feel like yourself, it can be, I guess it could be devastating in some ways for some people, because it's like, I'm never going to be that person again. And so wrapping your head around that and then managing expectations of what you can do and what you can get done, and all that pressure that moms put on themselves is, it's huge. It's huge. So that would be probably the most surprising thing I would say to people is don't try to get back to who you were before.
It's that little bit of a perspective shift, if you agree with this, of like the evolution of who you are. Like this, it's beautiful, and it doesn't mean it's taking away the challenges, but it's your evolution and growth. And yeah, that's just very beautifully said. And expectations. I've talked about this book so many times on this show, but I read a book about expectations. It was called Live Free by Devin Franklin. It changed my world because he taught it. The whole book was about expectations, but he goes over every aspect of your life and just how, I mean, yeah, it was fascinating. So thank you for sharing that because, yeah.
It is. I mean, expectations like of yourself and of other people and of your baby.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Stay off social media because those babies who are sleeping through the night is likely not going to be your baby. So even managing your expectations for your own child, right?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Oh, golly. Yes. So with, your journey through school and research and just, because you were already in school with your second. So with you, when you started to research and like kind of used yourself as your own case study, if like, okay, if this works for me or, helping or preventing or treating your postpartum depression, how did that help transform your perspective as a mom, but then also in your professional aspect, within postpartum health?
Well, I think that, so you're talking about how I prepared for my third pregnancy and delivery?
Yeah, I know. I started with William, but then I was like, you said it was your third pregnancy once you started kind of using yourself as that case study. So yeah, how did that kind of personal and professional kind of mold?
Yeah. Okay. So there were a few things that I realized. First was kind of the physical aspect. And as a psychotherapist, I'm not supposed to recommend like something that a dietitian would recommend, for example. But what I do say to my clients is, this is a study that shows that this works. You can use this for yourself if you want. Other people have said that this works for them.
Yeah.
And so that's the way that I kind of recommend that physical recovery. So for me, that was omegas were so important. That can change your mood in 24 hours. 24 hours.
Is this nursing and or not nursing, or is it just your body?
No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's helpful for both, for sure. And even during pregnancy too. Again, like as I'm saying all these things, I'm not a dietitian. Check with your own doctor first before you just jump into supplements. But and then like nutrition postpartum, like you have just been through either a major surgery or a major delivery. And that means that your body needs to recover. And you're up all night and you're not yourself and you're experiencing the biggest drop in hormones that you'll ever experience in your life. And so many moms are like, okay, I'm just going to push through it. Right? All I hear all the time is like, I don't have time to make myself meals. I skip breakfast. I just have coffee. I don't know why I'm so anxious. And, those basic needs aren't being met. So physical recovery is number one for sure. Having people lined up to bring you hot meals, right? Healthy food. And I might get some flack for saying this, but like your body's not going to recover on fast food and like packaged snacks.
Yeah.
Postpartum, which is what we go to, right? So that's called postpartum depletion. When you postpartum, you just don't have the things that your body needs to recover. And that can easily spiral into postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression. And that can last for years if you don't treat it. What else? Expectations, self-compassion. Self-compassion is huge. You know, a lot of people are saying like, well, my mom did everything herself, but how did she feel? We don't know that. Right. And maybe she didn't do it all herself. And maybe she really struggled. And you're also a different person.
Yeah.
Right.
And a different time of the world. You know, yeah.
You have so much more pressures, I think.
Well, technology and social media, you already talked about it, so I'll bring it up again, right? But we see everything. We have access to so much more. And I feel like from a nervous system the overstimulation piece of just that nervous system, I feel like we're what's the word I'm looking for? Like overdrawn.
Overstimulated?
Yeah, like we're just always go, go, go. I can't think of the word, but yes.
Yeah, exactly. Like you can be burnt out just sitting at home scrolling social media, which is mind blowing. Like you're not doing anything, but essentially you're putting yourself into a mode of anxiety because you see all these things that you don't have and all these people who are doing better than you, and your brain is spinning.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So that's a huge one too. That's part of managing expectations, is perhaps deleting social media for a little while.
Yeah.
Which people,
breaking a hard habit, I'm sure, just because it's so habitual. Yeah.
Yeah. Very hard when you're nursing too.
Yeah.
Right. It's often the first thing you do. Yeah. Get a Kindle so you can read at night.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then asking for help, having social support around you is one of the best ways that you can prepare. Believing and knowing that you can't do it all on your own, because that's not the way that we were supposed to raise our kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like we lost that sense of it takes a village to raise your kids, right? We have such an individualistic culture, and knowing that or thinking that we should be able to do it all ourselves just puts you into that spiral of feeling like crap when you can't do it.
Yeah.
Because you won't be able to.
Amazing message right there for postpartum and beyond. That is such a good message just to take in.
Yeah. Thanks. So yeah, that's what I did. And that's what I encourage my clients to do. You know, if we're talking before the delivery, and then if we're talking after, it's still a lot of the same stuff. Yeah. Individualized, of course, for the person, but yeah.
So speaking from, I'll use me as an example, talking about self-diagnosing, struggling to differentiate between, baby blues, postpartum depression, anxiety, psychosis. Is this normal? Like there's, your mind is spinning. How can a mom recognize differences before, seeking, I'm saying seek, professional help also, but how are some tips that we can help in recognizing those differences? And when it's time to seek support.
Right. Yeah. And it's hard. I think that's probably the hardest part.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of moms do know that they're not going to feel like themselves postpartum, but that's pretty much all you're told, right? Like, so baby blues, very common, but they kind of start around day 2 to 4. That's kind of when it'll come on. You'll just feel like maybe despair. You might feel it worse at nighttime. Yeah. And there's probably going to be a lot of crying, but this is just because your estrogen and your progesterone are plummeting. They're plummeting. Like this is bigger than going through puberty, going through menopause, right? This is huge. So that's normal. Baby blues are normal. You don't have to seek treatment for that. You can, if you want to talk to somebody about that, it might help. So you can, but it shouldn't last longer than 2 weeks. Baby blues are like 2 weeks and done. If it's longer than 2 weeks, I would seek support.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, basically you're looking for, in postpartum depression, it would look like depression. So lack of finding joy in things that you used to love, maybe even lack of joy in your other children, which is huge, and also creates a lot of guilt for moms, right? Like my other kids are just bugging me. Like I don't want to be around them.
Yeah.
That's not normal. It's common, but it's not normal. Yeah. So yeah, just feeling really low, crying a lot. Those are things you should watch out for. Postpartum anxiety, of course, all those physical symptoms, tight chest, racing heart, sweating, feeling really overwhelmed, feeling like your thoughts are spinning out of control, I would seek help for that. It's normal to feel a little bit overwhelmed. It's a brand new thing, right? If your baby's crying, it's normal to feel like, oh my gosh, stop, right? Like you don't necessarily need treatment for that. But if you're feeling like things won't stop and you always feel that way, I would seek treatment.
Yeah.
And then postpartum psychosis.
Yeah, I've never really heard of this until probably after Jalen. So I didn't hear about that at all with Jace.
Okay. How did you hear about it?
From someone on social media, but she just a social media type post that I follow. She's a mom influencer and she was diagnosed with it, and I was like, whoa, like, that's so interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of scary.
Yeah.
It's really rare. So don't be afraid of it. But if you're pregnant, like it's likely not going to happen to you. Yeah. But this is, and we can talk about the difference, two different kinds of intrusive thoughts.
That was my next question. Perfect.
Yeah, okay, I'll go there first because it kind of helps. So intrusive thoughts, first of all, scary thoughts, everybody has them. Yeah. Everybody has them. If you're like, and this is going to sound insane to say out loud, but if you're standing on a balcony with your baby and you have this thought, what if I dropped my baby right now over the balcony? And then you're like, what the heck? Why did that pop into my head? And you're scared, right? That's super scary. Is there something wrong with me? Am I going to drop my baby over this balcony? I can't tell anybody about this, right? But actually, a lot of people have that thought, and it's normal.
I was going to share that. That was an example. That was my example. Because really? Yes, not a balcony, but we have like going up our stairs. We have a 2-story house, going up our stairs, and then you have like the landing, but then I have a hallway with that obviously drops down. So it's like a little loft that would drop down onto the stairs. So like the railing piece of like walking down the hallway, it's an open area, and then the stairs are below. Right. That was always, because if ever I would carry my baby, because like at the top of our landing is the kids' room, and then you have to walk down the hall to get to our room. So that hallway from their room to my room, if I ever had them in my room or brought them to their room, that was my biggest one of like, what if I'd have to physically lift and, drop over our railing, but it's like, that was my biggest one. That's so
wow. Yeah. And so scary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And I'm like, I can't tell anyone this. Like,
right. Or like smothering your baby in their sleep. Right. And it's not necessarily, so an intrusive thought that's like, what if it happened, like, SIDS, that's scary. But another intrusive thought is, what if I did it? What if I put a blanket over my baby's head and I smothered my baby? Right. But okay, so when you had that thought, let me ask you, how did you feel about that thought?
I disconnected from it. I was like, Jenna, you are safe. You are holding your baby. Like, this is I identified it, I guess, as like, this is just, I call it a crazy thought. You are not crazy. This is a crazy thought. And I was being the observer of my thought.
Right. Awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, this is after I already, started this kind of work with mindset and stuff too. So like in those moments of, trust me, like I was in very low points to where I'm like, I feel like I'm in a spiral. And how do I like get out? Like, how do I become that observer of my thoughts? So there were also moments of that too, because but in those moments of the, the railing or whatnot, I easily became, okay, you are the observer. This is okay. You are okay. Just go to the room, whatever it is, just make your track down the hallway.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Not everybody can do that. So that's so good that you've put in that work. But you didn't want to do it, right? You didn't think it was a good idea.
Right.
So that would be, is someone behind you?
No, my cat just came in. Oh. Creepy.
Ghosts.
Why did your door just open?
Okay, so that would be an ego systonic thought.
Oh,
It
okay.
goes, the thought goes with who you are as a person, essentially. You have the thought, but you think it's a terrible idea.
Mm-hmm.
And it's scary because you don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the alternative is an ego dystonic thought.
Okay.
And that would be, I, I have this thought that I could bury my baby in my backyard to keep her safe. And I think that's a good idea,
Okay.
right? That is ego dystonic. And you think that your scary thoughts are a good idea and that you should do them and that they make sense. And that is a hallmark of postpartum psychosis.
Okay. Oh, I
Yeah.
have chills. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very scary. Of course, there are other things that characterize postpartum psychosis too. Seeing things, hearing things,
Mm-hmm.
thinking that there are aliens or other people in the room with you, or all those kind of things that regular psychosis brings as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's the main difference. And I think it's really important to distinguish between systonic and dystonic thoughts, because you can tell people about those scary thoughts. You're not going to get your baby taken away from you.
Yeah.
If your baby is actually at risk and you need some time to recover, that might happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's a good thing. It's a good thing, right? And it's not going to be forever, and you and your baby are going to be just fine afterwards. But for having those ego systonic thoughts, you're not going to be locked up, and no one's going to take your kids from you, and they're very normal. Yeah.
Can we talk about guilt for a little bit? You
Yeah.
mentioned it a little bit ago. I forget the example that you shared, but I just feel like the guilt comes with so much. I mean, if you're sharing your thoughts or if you're just thinking them and then you go down this spiral of like, oh my gosh, I'm not being the best mom now because I'm so, caught up in this or that, the other. How I'm sure that you work with, moms with guilt. So how do you kind of walk them through the grace or, the expectations?
That's such a good question. So there are a few things, right, in fostering self-compassion,
Mm.
which self-compassion covers a multitude of sins, I would say.
Uh,
So I think a really easy one that anyone, like your listeners, can do right now is just asking yourself, if I had a friend going through this, what would I say to them? Right? Would I be like, it's okay, you're doing your best?
mm,
I don't know what the situation would be that would create guilt, but I'll give you an example of one after. But so having that self-compassion, how would you talk to somebody you love? How would you talk to a friend through this, or your child through
mm,
this?
mm.
And can you say those words to yourself?
Yeah.
Can you kind of parent yourself through this? And then I also like to say that guilt can be really helpful, but only if you've done something wrong.
Mm,
So you have to ask yourself that question. Have I actually done something wrong? And if the answer is no, then that guilt is very unhelpful
mhm.
and it shouldn't be there. And you can tell it to F off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you have done something wrong, your guilt helps you it pushes you to fix it.
Yeah.
And once you fix it, or once you try to fix it, you can release that guilt. Yeah. My situation was that, so Fiona, my little baby, she was born with a heart condition, and we were in the NICU for 3 weeks. But at the beginning of it, because we didn't live super close to the hospital where she had to be transferred, they had this like little room for nursing moms that I could sleep in, but it was outside the NICU, and it was like this 100-degree windowless hot room. Okay, and I sound ungrateful. I was really grateful to have it because I was close to her, and there was only a few rooms. But I would have to get up every few hours, get dressed, because I was having postpartum like night sweats, so I'd have to get changed,
Yeah.
put my glasses on because I'm blind, race out to the NICU, scrub in fully,
Yeah.
and then go to my little thing, my cubby, sit down, nurse her. And she was terrible at nursing because her medication made her super tired. So I was basically doing nothing. She would have to have a bottle after. And so I did that like 3 times a night. And I was just done. I was so exhausted. I was not sleeping. And then I was in the hospital with her all day long. Like I pretty much didn't leave her side except to eat. So I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought that it was essential that I keep trying to breastfeed her all night long, even though I was doing it during the day too, even though she wasn't interested. And then they took my room away because somebody else needed it. And we ended up staying at Ronald McDonald House, which, side note, is like the best place ever. I couldn't praise them enough. But I had to then stop breastfeeding at night because I couldn't go from the whatever. And after a few days, they offered me my room back. And I said to my husband, Peter, I'm like, I feel so bad, but I don't want it. I don't want it back. Like I was actually sleeping, and that sleep was helping me get through this really hard situation that we were in.
Yeah.
And he encouraged me and he said, babe, like, just sleep. You're there all day. Like, you're doing so many things. And I had this intense guilt right away. I thought, like, who cares about me? This is my baby. Who cares about me? It's not about me anymore. I'm a mom. And I had to talk myself out of that. Right? It's like, it's cliche, but you got to put your own oxygen mask on first. Even if you're not, like, even if your situation's not as intense as mine, like, you're allowed to take time away from your baby.
Right.
Just because you're a mom, it doesn't mean that's the only thing that you are. Right? So letting go of that guilt, because was I doing anything wrong? No, absolutely not. But I felt guilty because of my own expectations. So I don't know if that answers your question. But.
So how did you work through that? Like, was it just, okay, I'm choosing sleep, or like, how did you just drop it, I guess? Like, what were those steps that you were able to continue to stay at Ronald McDonald and not, take back?
That's a good question. I wouldn't say it was just, I wasn't just like, okay, I'm not guilty anymore. And then it went away, which would be really nice, but our minds don't work.
Normal.
Yeah. So I think for me in that situation, it was replacing my self-talk over and over and over until I finally got it. So every time that thought came up, like, this is your baby. You don't need to sleep. You should be doing everything for your baby that's in the hospital and she needs you. I would replace those thoughts with, I am here all the time. I'm doing my best. I need to sleep because I'm a human person. And I have amazing nurses here all night with her, and they can do it. They're capable, right? They're like the best babysitters you could ever ask for. So yeah, just replacing those thoughts over and over. We build these neural pathways in our brain. And the more we repeat something to ourselves, the stronger it gets, until that thought isn't even a thought that we have to think. It's just true. It's just our truth. But it might not be a true thought. It's our truth, but we probably shouldn't be believing that thing.
Right.
And so those neural pathways, they're stronger the longer that they've been there. So if you always have this belief, my baby needs to be breastfed and only breastfed and nothing else is good for my baby, that pathway is going to be really strong. And it's going to take a lot of kind of resetting the pathway to a new pathway before that is the automatic thought and not the old thought.
Exactly. And that goes for everything, not just postpartum. Yeah, that is limiting beliefs and, like the reason for affirmations. And
totally. And that's why it's good when affirmations are specific to you, right? When you come up with them yourself, kind of offset your own negative belief.
Exactly. Because they could be just totally surface level cliche. You could rattle them off on a page, but if you're not believing them, or that's why I love creating your own, or don't even call it an affirmation if you think it's too rah-rah. Don't even call it that.
Sure.
Just, like what you said, just the self-talk. How do you talk to yourself? It's the same concept of exactly what you shared. So thank you, because that, for the listeners, just that is for everything in life, not just your postpartum
For
season.
sure. Everything. And if you don't want to call it an affirmation too, sometimes I call it a 1.0 belief, and then your new one is your 2.0 belief.
I love
And it's
it.
yeah.
I love it. 1.0 and 2.0. I love it. I love it. Okay, so you shared so much. Like, thank you so, so much. Do you have any additional, just like proactive steps for moms during pregnancy or
Mhm.
newly in postpartum, just to help themselves emotionally? You shared a lot of physical already, in a previous question, but just any other additional steps that people can be taking?
It's a great question. Preparation,
Yeah.
right? Whatever that means for you. There's so many good books out there. There's one called The Fourth Trimester, which is amazing, but there's lots like that. And reading some of those. So not just preparing physically for the baby, but preparing emotionally for postpartum, learning everything that you can, and trying not to do that from a place of fear, right? And if you are scared or have like experienced negative postpartum mental health in the past, talk to a therapist. Go once or twice and find one that specializes in postpartum health and say, like, give me some tips. What can I do to prep myself? Just, yeah, really get ready the same way you would physically for your baby.
That's
That's
wonderful.
my best advice.
Well, thank you, Steph. So tell people, tell us how, if someone is looking to seek out support,
Mm.
do you work virtually? Do you only work with people in Ontario? Kind of how does that work with you and your practice?
So, yeah, it's a good question. Thanks. I do see clients in Ontario virtually. That would be from a psychotherapist point of view perspective. But if someone else wants to see me outside of Ontario, we can just call that coaching,
Sure.
and we can go from there. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So where can we find you?
Yeah, I don't know if you can post that link.
Yes.
It's on Psychology Today, and
Okay.
you can just search for Steph DeVries, postpartum specialist.
Awesome. I will share that, yes, in the show notes below. You could be able to copy and paste that link. I have
Awesome.
one
Thank
more
you.
question. Yeah, of course. I have one
Yeah.
more question, and I don't share this prior to because I love it to be just impromptu.
Okay.
Okay. So I just love the direction that this question goes. I ask all my guests. So, what are some moments within your life where you just knew, like you knew that you were, I call it, in your energy of alignment? Like you knew that you were on your path, living your purpose, or, just authentically yourself. Call it,
Mhm.
you were living God's will, you were whatever you want to call it. I just love to call
Mhm.
it living in your energy of alignment.
Yeah.
What are some of those just like stories or those moments for you that are coming to you?
Wow. I don't know if it's because we've been talking about it for half an hour, but when
I
I see
figured. Yeah.
when I see postpartum clients and they tell me things like they tell me their story, and I can just say, "You're not alone. You're not alone." And that, like, right there, I'm crying now, but like that means so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be one for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. Sometimes when I'm with my kids, I don't always feel
Yeah.
I don't always feel like I'm
We'll
alive.
put that out there right now. Yeah. We all feel that way.
Yeah, on the days when all your kids are in your bed with you in the mornings, and it's like a slow, quiet Saturday,
Yeah.
and you can just like be with them and you can like touch their little faces. It's just like your heart couldn't be more full.
Yeah.
That's a big one for me.
I feel it like in my chest right now. I'm just like,
Oh,
I
yeah,
feel that.
yeah,
Oh, Steph, thank you so much.
yeah. Thank you. This has been
Ah,
great.
yes, I'm just so inspired by you, and I'm so proud, of you for taking this path because I
Thank
mean,
you.
we've been through, gosh, it's been 6 years, since
Yeah, wild.
it is wild, and just to
Yeah,
watch you grow and what we've been through, together with our babies and then just with, business endeavors and things like that. It's just been so beautiful to watch you fall into your path. It's beautiful.
thank you. It's just, yeah, it just goes to show like all your negative experiences can be for good.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. Oh,
yeah. Well,
well,
thank you,
thank
Jen.
you. Thank you. Yes. And so my mama's, everything we discussed will be linked in the show notes below where you could find Steph. And until next week, as always, simply be you. You have everything inside of you to learn your energy of alignment and be unapologetic in who you are. We're sending our love and light.
Did you find this episode relatable or empowering? Peace, we love of you.
Thank you for spending this sacred time with me on Naturally Empowered Living. I pray this episode has brought you a step closer to tuning into your energy of alignment. And if it has, please consider leaving a written review sharing how this show has impacted you. Your feedback truly lights me up and helps other moms find their way to this community. And if it feels right, please share this episode with another mom who might be struggling to remind her that she's never alone. Be sure to check the show notes for more ways to connect and explore how we could work together to reclaim your power and deepen your relationship within. Thank you. I appreciate all you are and all you do.